Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Consalvi. I am the Director of Education at the museum here. And I am here today with Anne Bobroff-Hajal, the artist behind our new exhibition, Playground of the Autocrats. The exhibition opens this Sunday, October 4th, and runs through January 24th, 2021. So you have plenty of time to see this really beautiful and exciting show. It's really not like anything else we've ever done. You'll see a lot of influences from animation and graphic novels, and of course from iconography. And so we'll join Anne today as she kind of takes us through the exhibit and talks about her inspiration and her process. So thank you for joining us. That was it. And what sparked your interest in animation, and how does that interest inspire your work?
So I grew up painting, and I was always doing still flat paintings. And then at some point I got exposed to animation, which I loved because it could tell a story. And not only that, but it moved. And so it had all these elements that I really loved in addition to a flat painting. So I actually began these paintings originally as scripts for animated short films. And I designed the characters for these animated short films who were going to be sort of your tour guides through the craziness of all this. And so this is sort of the key to all of these large pieces, in which the infant Stalin has three flying godparents who circle around him, singing to him their life advice. Each of these rulers will say to Stalin, listen, I have this same problem that you're going to have, and you should solve it the same way I solved it. So this is all of these big polyptychs. Each of them is one of these czarist figures giving their advice to the infant Stalin. So I designed a way for each of these characters to fly that was appropriate for the actual monarch. And so with Catherine the Great here, she has wings that are made out of the eagle, the double-headed eagle seal of Imperial Russia. And these wings are so huge and heavy and full of gold that she's unable to actually fly with the wings. So instead she has these serfs who hoist her up on stilts. They're all up on stilts, and that's what really gets her up into the air. So she's writing letters. She was famous for writing letters to the French Enlightenment figures. But really she was, in surfing more and more people and deepening serfdom. Okay, so now here's Peter the Great. Peter the Great loved ships. He was very interested in learning to build ships and building up ships for Russia, and in creating a warm water port for Russia, because the only port that they had was on the Arctic Ocean, which was frozen. So in this case, I have Peter flying with wings made out of ship sails, and he's flying using these contraptions. He had a great interest in Western developments of machinery and so on. So that's what he's all about. But this is Ivan the Terrible, and the way he flies is very interesting because he had a secret police just like Stalin did, and the symbols of his secret police were a severed dog's head and a broom, which the secret police each used to carry around on their horses. They would have these stuck on their saddles when they were going around doing their evil deeds. And so what's amazing is that if you put a severed dog's head on a broom, you end up with a sort of mixture of a hobby horse and a witch's broom for him to fly on. So
why did you specifically choose Ivan the Terrible, Peter the Great, and Catherine the Great to serve as the godparents of Stalin, as opposed to, say, Vladimir the Great or even Nicholas II?
Okay, so I was interested in I actually used these animated characters to draw people into looking at much more serious and sort of almost academic topics. And you can see that in some of these other panels. These are really quite frightening things that are happening. And I want to, as an artist, what I want to do is use art so that it gives you a place of safety to look at scary things. You know, you can look at the scary thing and then look back at the fun thing and remember life is also fun. It's not only scary, but I think that it's good to look at these scary things. I think that's important. And so the reason I chose these particular godparents, since my whole aim with them is to draw viewers into looking at the entire polyptych, I chose the most well-known ones in the United States. And I think for that, and I'm really trying to talk about continuity in Russian history, that the same problems come up constantly, generation, century after century, and that they have been resolved in the same ways. And that's why godparents singing to an infant makes sense, because it's talking about that continuity.
So in Darling Godsonny, the more you look, the more you see. How do you even begin to interpret such a large work? And can you explain some aspects of this enormous piece?
Okay, so I do notice that when people spend a lot of time with it, which by the way I love that people, look at each panel and move along. Often they're looking first at this layer of peasants at the bottom that goes all the way across the bottom, sort of unchanging. And these are each like 3-inch high nobles who are painted as individual portraits, and people often spend a lot of time looking at those. This, if you want to look at the overall thing that's happening, this one is about one of these flying godparents singing their advice to the infant Stalin. So that's how it begins here with Ivan the Terrible singing to the infant Stalin his advice. And this gets read from left to right like a book does. And if you read the lyrics, you'll follow what he's saying. You're going to find that you have the same problem I had. I had all these boyars who was trying to grab power and trying to jerk on my robe here and get power, and they were all disorderly and fighting against each other. And you're going to have that when you try to become the ruler of Russia in the 20th century. You're also going to have a problem with the same thing. And here we have all these the more powerful Bolsheviks pulling on Stalin. He's very destabilized, trying to consolidate his power. So then Ivan is telling him, well, what you have to do is purge them, work them to death, don't weep for their loss. And so this top part is paintings of Ivan the Terrible's purges during the Oprichnina, which were very, very similar to Stalin's purges. It's astounding when you read the air of terror that people lived through during the Oprichnina. It's so similar to what was happening in Stalinist Russia during his purges. And then this lower painting is of Stalin's purges and exiles and gulag labor camps and so on. Prisoner transport trains taking people out to the labor camps, and then executions. And so then Ivan is explaining to him, I'll go on this side now, Ivan is explaining to him why this works so well, which is, first of all, that everybody's terrorized. So everybody who survives is terrorized and just will stand rigid and do what you tell them to do. So you see each of these little portraits here is either a terrorized person who lost somebody close to them, and there are all these skeletons of the dead people who are haunting them. But then what you see is that when you remove some people at the top of the ladder, then everybody below that gets a chance to move up a notch. And then they feel very loyal to the czar in this case, or in this case, Stalin, who seems to have allowed them to rise up the ladder. But a lot of it was due to this tremendous removal of people higher up. So that's sort of the general gist of the whole thing.
So finally, I have to ask, how many hours of work between all the research, the design, the painting have gone into these?
Well, I can't quantify that. This took 4 years of really, a lot of work time. I spend a lot of time on these things because although they're very, very frustrating a lot of the time, it's also amazing to be able to create a world in your mind and then realize it and see it in front of you. And there's just something so exciting about that it sort of drags you through all the awfulness of trying to create something this large. I've always felt that doing art, doing painting is like breathing to me. And I work at home and you don't tell somebody, oh, go out to your studio and breathe for 8 hours a day and then come home and stop breathing. No, I just keep working. I guess I'm obsessional.